Hello and welcome back to another episode at Consciously Evolving Enterprises. Hey, it's been a while, I know, but hey, if we were to come back here and just chew the fat, have a chat, and you know what? That's what we're here for, right? No matter the time that passes, no matter the wind that blows, no matter the sea that's flowing, the rivers that have rivered, we're here, right? Anyway, like on the brain tonight, you can't help but thinking about things that, we just repeat, man. Like, chew the fat. That's what I mean. I want to get on and just have a conversation with my people. Life can be difficult. We all know that. Often these things happen in threes or in repeat, and you start to dwell on the past and reflect on things that haven't worked, and you start to spiral. So why not jump on here and have a yonder, have a gander? I kind of like already scripted in my head what I would talk about, which was every time I kind of go into one of these states, of depression, I always think back to the past and the past trauma that I have occurred, and how much you wish you could have a time machine and you could go back and change that past and live that life that happened. But often you don't and you can't, and if only by the Holy Spirit it happens, not suicide. So, and we don't know what happens after this life. So, you've got to put those thoughts aside and think about productive thoughts, positive, productive thoughts. Where are you going to go next? But what I want to reflect on is in that deep meditation of the past and the path that you were on, I often go back to my childhood, yes, but it's when I started to mature and could make my own decisions, that you kind of go, that's when I could have made a difference, could have made a change, as an uneducated, unknowing, unwitting child, you don't know. You just kind of follow on and do the thing. So every time I reflect back now, it's when I was about 14, going to high school. Things weren't too great at my mom's house. Really needed to get out of there. It was like dangerous, risky life stuff. So not only me living there, it was also with my three younger sisters. Um, we previously had my father at the house possessed by a demon. He left, came back, trashed the house looking for drugs, possessed by the same demon. Anyways, completely trashed the house. I'm like, turn it upside down, possessed by the devil's strength type shit. Anyways, not long after that, just pointing these things out. And I don't want to reflect on the abuse or the trauma, but having a gun pointed at your head by a random and the trigger pulled as a 14-year-old child or thereabouts is she your pants worthy? Really is. Although there was no bullet, I still felt that gust of wind hit my forehead, and life does flash before your eyes, far out. With only 14 years life experience. And then I look back at those relationships that I had then and how young I was and the friendships that I had and the connections that I had. And one of those stands out most of all. Not only my group of friends, but my lovers. And one of those young lovers that you head over heels for and you make the mistakes of young romance was Beatrice Rodriguez. And I remember her fondly. She was a young Spanish girl. Her brother was in special education, and so was I for year seven and most of year eight. And I got to know her younger brother. Um, ah, I want to say Francis. I believe his name was Francis. Woo, I hope I'm right. Anyways, I kind of protected him because me and Beatrice were in the same friendship group. Not that any romance started, but after taking care of her brother, I got her attention, to say, and romance blossomed, and we had a fantastic young romance. From memory, it was beautiful. We got along, we done things, we laughed, we giggled, we had high times, low times, sad times. Um, and unfortunately, from her perspective, I probably disappeared. I probably just vanished. But in reality, from what I remember, was I knew I had bad shit going on at home. I didn't want to involve anyone else in it, so I started to distance myself, and that's when I got picked up by foster care, and I went into a foster care home willingly, wanting to leave my family home, and started to distance myself from relationships then, especially from Beatrice. Um, I remember, some fat girl writing me a letter saying that she was cheating on me with another boy, and for a second I believed it, and I ended up breaking up with her. But more so using that as an excuse, knowing that my life was in turmoil. It was destructive, if anything. I didn't want to admit my father was violent, my mom was a drug addict, and my sisters needed caring. My home was no place for any visitor to come, with dog shit all over the floor and overstacked dishes and an oven that didn't even work. Anyway, so um, in the long run, I ended up going into the foster home. I was there for a few months and started to attend youth group. And Beatrice was an attendee as well, and we started blossoming again. And suddenly, I get like I said, it must have been from her eyes that I disappeared. Um, Within like it would have been the same school holidays around being 14, 15, going in near halfway through year 8, maybe the end. It would have been halfway through, anyways. Um, my dad turned up from nowhere and he offered to take me out of this foster care and come up to Central Coast, and he'll take care of me, and it was not documented at all. So I didn't realize at the time it wasn't my dad rescuing me from foster care, it was a kidnapping. And to a lot of my friends, I disappeared. I vanished. And I came up to the Central Coast from Sydney region. Um, and there he sucked all the money out of what youth allowance was there to feed his own alcoholism and drug addiction. And it wasn't until the school system noticed my lack of attendance that they started to pick stuff up, phone calls and appointments. Not only that, when I was attending school, my behavior was shocking. Talk about cry for attention. This poor kid, like, oh my God, he couldn't cry any louder. Just causing trouble, stealing stuff, being a little shit, disruptive because I did not have the patience to learn, especially with my dyslexia. It was just embarrassing, and any effort that any teacher made towards me was just redundant because I rejected it. I really wanted the admiration of the fellow students, and there was nothing I had that could offer that admiration other than me being different, extremely different. So that's the avenue that I took, being extremely different. Um, and it was a few months in that living with my dad, and occasionally attending school. Departments, the services picked me up again, and I went into a recovery program within youth referral refuge system, to call it, where I became a ward of the state. And it wasn't until 18 where I was pretty much released into the community. I had some really bad relationships because I did not know how to have or handle a relationship, let alone be in control of my own emotions. Not knowing about emotional intelligence until I was older now, and reflecting back on those relationships and thinking, what a young fellow that was going through so much trauma and pain, he couldn't have the relationships that he needed. And one of those most important relationships was with Beatrice Rodriguez. If anything, now that I matured as a man, I should have reconnected, and that's what I'm feeling now. Reaching out to her, googling her name, Facebook, whatever it might be, and seeing if I can make a reconnect, because it was one of those young romances that I spoiled from my own immaturity, of being a young, dumb, full of cum shithead. Like, but in reality, it was the home relationship, the dysfunction in my life that deteriorated everything else for a long time. And it wasn't until getting out of those programs, becoming a young adult, making my own mistakes, and reliving those mistakes, and now being 42, that I'm going into meditative states, back to paths back then of, in a different dimension, what and where I'm doing what I'm doing now with Beatrice. And I'm fond of that memory. I smile thinking of it and thinking of her. And I reflect back of how much I probably hurt her, in the past. Me being so young and not appreciative of the relationship and the love that she was offering. Not that I took advantage of it, but I eventually rejected it. Um, Maybe I was scared. Maybe I was afraid. Which actually believe now. I was afraid and I was scared that I would hurt her or somebody else. Um, Even just being close to someone, that she might hurt me. You know. But anyways, yeah. So reflecting back on that now, being 42, you know, living the life that I am isn't one that I want. It's not the place that I want to be. Uh, and I'm thinking about how I can change it now and be positive moving forward and not making mistakes of the past and the path that I was meant to be on and how to reclaim that. And I want to thank you for listening to my ramble, my chew of fat with you guys. It's always appreciated. Love you guys. Peace out. Take care. Do whatever your kids do these days.